We're going to have a blast today. Coming up, we're going to travel back to a glorious year in music history. We're going to remember some hit songs that were so indicative of that period of popular music. I'm telling you, you're going to cry tears of nostalgia, tears of joy. We're going back to 1987. We got a lot of great stories, but one that we're going to tell the story about a man who saw his wife across the room at a party, and he was so enchanted by her presence and her beauty after taking her for granted for many years. He wrote a classic 80s hit about it. Yet the legacy of the song would be tarnished by a scandal when the singer was having an affair with his nanny. There's also the song that came from a band whose lead singer once told Madonna that she had absolutely no talent. She quit that group to prove him wrong, and boy, did he ever pay for that dumb comment. There's also the song about being trapped in the prison of cocaine addiction, yet the song was used by a beer brand to illustrate having a good time with friends. Kind of in poor taste there. And lastly, a song by one of the most musically complex rock bands ever, one of my favorites. And they have one of the stupidest lyrics in rock history. These tales and more are in our feature about dated hit songs from 1987. Let's do it. Hey, music junkies, Professor Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you ever sang with a Mr. Microphone back in the day before karaoke hit big, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure that you're subscribed and make sure to like, comment, and share so that we can keep this channel going. Man, thanks for hanging out with us on Professor Rock and helping our channel out so much the last few weeks. Really appreciate it. All right, so it's time for another edition of our show, Dated. Songs that are definitely of their time. The songs that, due to their sound, define the year and the time they came from. Man, I'm telling you, we're going into nostalgia overload for this one and setting the time circuits for the year 1987. I got to tell you, I've done 3 episodes so far of this program, and I still have viewers who get charged up thinking I'm dissing these songs, but I'm only saying that they sound like the year they came from, and that's not a bad thing. Let's get into it. All right, so coming in at number 10, I got the power ballad Carrie by Europe from the Final Countdown album. Now, Carrie is actually this Swedish rock group's biggest U.S. hit. It went to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. A lot of people forget that. It actually outcharted the anthemic stadium rocker The Final Countdown on the Billboard Hot 100 here in the U.S. It's the final countdown. Of course, it went to number 1 in 25 other countries, but The Final Countdown went to number 8 here. And Carrie, that was a power ballad that was written by Joey Tempest and Mike McCauley, and the song tells the story of heartbreak and saying goodbye to a dear friend dealing with the pain of a failed relationship. When the lights go down, I see. Now, the melody for Carrie, that actually came from Mike. It was the band's keyboardist. He was in a hotel lobby noodling on a small portable Yamaha keyboard. And this was when vocalist Joey Tempest heard something that Mike was playing. He liked it. He urged him to turn it into a song for the band and put lyrics to it. Now, most of the Final Countdown album was built around up-tempo tracks, with Carrie sticking out as the odd one, basically crafted to fit the late 80s U.S. power ballad craze. That formula that the band followed is kind of why the song is dated now. Songs are definitely pigeonholed when they try to ride a trend, right? Seeing that every rock band had at least one power ballad in their arsenal, especially in the late 80s. Many of them ended up being fan favorites. Now, in its original acoustic form, though, the song probably would have aged a lot better. Europe wrote Carrie a few years before it was released and played it in concert as an acoustic break in the middle of their live set, and it went over very well, but they kind of 80s it up, which is not a bad thing. All right, back to our spotlight on dated hit songs from 87. At number 9, we're going to sashay across the floor, dance cheek to cheek with the ballad that every 80s kid knows by heart, and we love it even if some of us won't admit to it. Talk about The Lady in Red by Chris de Burgh. Never seen you looking so lovely as you did tonight. Chris de Burgh wrote The Lady in Red after he caught a glimpse of his wife, Diane, at a party. He saw her in a red dress and suddenly realized he'd stopped noticing the woman that he had fallen in love with many years before. Felt like a moment of rediscovery for him, and he turned that into a song that also served as an apology after an argument. The sweet origin story and, of course, the irresistible chorus, it wasn't just a love note, it became a huge worldwide hit. Though it's never without its critics, I've noticed. And I have never seen that dress you're wearing, or the... Chris said the idea to compose The Lady in Red, that came from seeing Diane across the room looking beautiful and terrific. Yeah, especially in that red dress, and she gave him a private, kind of just for you smile. Now, in some accounts, he admits the song grew out of a fight with his wife and he wrestled with finishing it, using the lyrics to show his appreciation for her. Now, Chris originally wanted to call it The Way You Look Tonight, but that title was already taken. Didn't stop Elton John some years later from doing the same thing. And while it became a staple of 80s romance, it split listeners. Now, some found it deeply romantic. Others thought it was a little bit too sappy. I like it. Chris uses his mom's maiden name de Burgh for his showbiz career, but his real name is Chris Davison. He and Diane eventually had a daughter, Rosanna Davison, and Rosanna was crowned Miss Ireland in 2003 and went on to win Miss World. She actually didn't wear a red dress at either pageant. Now, Chris de Burgh scored a big hit with The Lady in Red. It went all the way to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it topped the charts in 8 different countries and was on a lot of soap operas. But the legacy of The Lady in Red has been negatively affected by real-world context, after it was revealed to be about his wife while he was simultaneously linked to a scandal involving an affair with his nanny. That never works out very well, does it? All right, coming in at number 8 on our 1987 dated countdown, I've got Right on Track by The Breakfast Club. Right on Track by The Breakfast Club has a pretty crazy backstory. In the band's early days, Madonna was actually part of the group in late 1979. This is before she blew up as one of the biggest stars on the planet, of course. Now, the song's co-writer and drummer, Stephen Bray, he was a longtime Madonna collaborator, helping write many of her biggest 80s hits, like these. Not only did Madonna drum with The Breakfast Club, though, she sang a bit for the band, and she even lived with the band member Dan Gilroy in the early days. And then you've also got Saida Garrett, of course famous for co-writing Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror, doing backing vocals, and appearing in the music video for Right on Track, so there's that as well. As the band's career progressed, they even had Randy Jackson, the famous bassist. He played with Journey and, of course, American Idol's judge. He played with them as well. The Breakfast Club, they got their name long before the John Hughes movie hit in 1986. They started as a late-night rehearsal crew, and they named themselves after kind of the grab-and-go diners for breakfast back around 1979 to 1980 when Madonna was still with the group. At that time, she was all in on the music and fitness, actually. She ripped through 3-mile runs with Gilroy most days and practicing drums for hours with the band. Madonna eventually left the band because they wouldn't let her be the front woman or to front it. There's actually a famous story where Gilroy allegedly shouted something at her that really pissed her off. Madonna claimed that Gilroy yelled, "You're all naked ambition and no talent." If it was true, the story certainly was a great motivator for an already ambitious Madonna. She later echoed something similar on stage during her Blonde Ambition era. She had 50 times as many hits as the band, who rejected her, because the Breakfast Club only had that one hit. Right on Track, that sound, it fits right into the dance grooves of 86, 87. That's why it's a relic of that time. It was constructed on bright staccato synthesizer sounds and programmed drum machine patterns that, of course, heavily associated with 80s pop. It was particularly stuck in 1987, though, because it was remixed by John Jellybean Benitez. He, of course, was the hottest DJ and remixer during that time. You'd see him on pretty much all the big songs. His style, that made him so in demand back then, it didn't really survive the 80s, though. As the lyrics on Right on Track go, the music doesn't sound the way it did. For those of you that grew up in the 80s, back in 1987 into 1988, there was a great war going on this planet, and you definitely had to pick a side. Now, I'm not talking about the Cold War. I'm not talking about Nintendo versus Sega. I'm talking about the Debbie versus Tiffany war. At number 7, I got Debbie Gibson with Only in My Dreams. All right, so let's talk about Debbie Gibson. Back in 1987, she was an ambitious teenager that took over the pop scene with the release of her first single, Only in My Dreams. Debbie Gibson, she was really a pop prodigy in the making. She wrote Only in My Dreams when she was 13 years old. She signed with a major label at 15, going on 16, and went on to become the youngest artist to write, produce, and perform a Billboard #1 hit with Foolish Beat. It was her 4th single. Most think of her as the teeny bop princess, but she actually crafted Only in My Dreams in her family's home garage on a 4-track recorder, and it started out as something meant mainly for dance clubs where it was a huge hit. It was fueled by her family's DIY promotional efforts. And get this, the Gibsons, the clan, the family, they hit the clubs every night while Debbie was still in high school. Debbie, her sister, and their mom hustled to push the 12-inch single at clubs to grab radio attention. And Debbie often performed 3 shows a night at these different venues. Debbie Gibson was a big story in 1987 along with Tiffany. And they worked hard to get that attention, the poster girls for that era. I actually had the opportunity to interview both Debbie and Tiffany. And it was a lot of fun because I was only like 12 years old when the two of them broke. I'll admit I had a big crush on both of them. So interviewing them as an adult, that was pretty surreal. So funny story about that. I also got the offer to interview New Kids on the Block since Debbie Gibson, Tiffany, and New Kids on the Block were all on tour together. But man, I had to decline with NKOTB. And the reason why, I reasoned that if I did an interview with this boy band, the 13-year-old version of myself would steal a time machine and travel to my year in the future and kick my ass. That's what I thought. So here's what Debbie told me about Only in My Dreams.
I was running around with like literally a lunch bag, a brown paper bag with individual cassettes because I'd throw them on like a 10-minute cassette each song, and I would dump the bag on Doug and Ahmed Erdogan's desk.
Oh my God.
And say, "Here's my album." I think they were like, "Is this for real?"
So I got to ask you, were you on Team Debbie or Team Tiffany? I like Debbie because she produced and wrote all of her stuff, but I admit I was a little bit more attracted to Tiffany. I really like redheads. My wife's a redhead. All right, coming in at number 6, we're going to go to a pretty heavy subject here as we turn the spotlight on Tonight, Tonight, Tonight by Genesis. Tonight, Tonight, Tonight is a Phil Collins tune for sure. Pretty intense. The lyrics dive into cocaine addicts, withdrawal, and the nerve-wracking scramble to reach a dealer, with lines like, "I got some money in my pocket about ready to burn, and please get me out of here." Please someone get me out. Now, verse 2 of Tonight, Tonight, Tonight is particularly trenchant. It's like a helter-skelter going down and down, round and round, but just get it away from me. Just get it away from me. That passage characterizes the hopelessness of a person, the hopelessness they feel when battling drug dependency, and that's what Phil Collins was going for. I mean, when it came out and I was a little kid, I thought it was about a monkey because, the lyrics about the monkey. Anyway, it's disturbing how rampant cocaine use was in the 80s. It's kind of the drug of the decade. The exasperation expressed in the song, that was not an isolated observation or experience by Phil, though. It was something he often encountered in the music business. Tonight, Tonight is one of the few Genesis tracks that directly tackles such a dark subject. Actually, while Genesis was developing Tonight, 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 the working title was Monkey Zulu, which was a phrase meaning "get the monkey off my back." And of course, George Michael would have a #1 hit the year after with Monkey, talking about the same thing. Pop culture irony is what makes Tonight, Tonight a dated song from 1987, because shortly after its peak, where it moved to #3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and #9 on the mainstream rock chart, the track was used in a major TV campaign for Michelob beer. Do you remember that?
The night belongs to Michelob.
A song about a nightmarish cocaine addiction was used as a theme to have a good time drinking beer. Kind of in poor taste there. They don't really listen to the lyrics. Trying to imagine the discussion the Michelob team had that led to the decision to use it. Hey, we need a song about friends getting together and having a memorable evening together drinking Michelob. How about that Genesis song, Tonight, Tonight, Tonight? Oh yeah, that'd be perfect. That's a great song. And of course, these executives never bothered to listen to the lyrics. Now, what makes this song so dated too is those synthesized drums. But Phil's vocal, man, is scorched earth. Here's a fun fact about the music video for it, though. It was pounded on MTV. The music video was filmed in the famous Bradbury Building in L.A. It's known for its use in the sci-fi classic Blade Runner starring Harrison Ford, so there's that. All right, halfway through our countdown at number 5, I've got an 80s classic, man. Someday by Canada's Glass Tiger. Now, Someday heavily features the Yamaha DX7, particularly for the bass, marimba, and electronic piano sounds, and most notably the synthesized harmonica solo, which was a hallmark of mid-80s pop production. You throw on the Lynn drum machine, and you have a quintessential late 80s production for sure. I spoke with the guys from Glass Tiger about Someday, their second big hit after Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone. Here's what they shared about the song.
And I immediately started singing, when I come home, you telephone. When I come home, just kept repeating that. When I
come home, telephone. The bass in that is primarily a keyboard bass.
Right.
It was Valent chugging on the bass. Al came in with the guitar line and then also the bridge, which was really cool.
Someday won the Juno for Single of the Year in 1987 for Glass Tiger, and it was a number 7 hit in the Billboard Hot 100. I mean, what kid didn't sing along to this song when you had one of your first breakups, which I did? I had a breakup with a girl. It's the girl that I threw away my comic books because she told me she'd go out with me if I got rid of all my comic books. I've told that story before in the story that I did on Whitesnake, Here I Go Again, so you probably heard that. But this was a song that I was listening to nurse my broken heart as a 12-year-old kid that didn't know any better. I really like Glass Tiger. It was so much fun when I got a chance to interview him because, you know, they had those 2 or 3 songs when I was a kid that, you know, just meant so much. Make sure to get your Vintage Years collection shirts. We've got so many great years. I'm wearing one right now. Get them below or get them right up here. We're having a special deal that we're running through the first 3 months of this year. Make sure to get yours before April ends. And speaking of 1987, we actually do have a 1987 shirt with all the great artists on there. But you won't find this guy on there, even though he had a big hit in 1987. At number 4, we turn our attention to a guy who's primarily known as a one-hit wonder. Even though he actually had a gaggle of hits in 1987, and somewhere on the chart at the same time, he's actually competing with himself. But sometimes a hit song becomes so dated that you forget that the artist had other material. That's what happened to Robbie Nevil with C'est La Vie, our number 4 pick. Robbie Nevil's big hit, C'est La Vie, actually has an interesting origin that many aren't aware of. Robbie co-wrote the song with Duncan Payne and Mark Holding, but he let gospel singer Bo Williams release it first in 1984 on his album Bodacious. Yeah, that's right, a gospel singer with an album titled Bodacious. Bo's version, it didn't get a lot of traction though. I don't think it hit the gospel charts. Are there gospel charts? Robbie then cut his own version and released it, but that version exploded. It became a global smash and shot all the way to number 2 on the Billboard Top 40. Ended up outperforming the original. Robbie confided that he wrestled with the decision on whether C'est La Vie should be his debut single, mainly because it was an old song for him. He wrote the song more than 3 years prior to that, and even he felt it was a bit dated. He really wanted to lead with one of his new tunes that sounded a little bit more modern. There are a few people at the label, though, especially executive producer Steve Reed, who said, if you don't go with this one, you're an absolute fool. It's a hit. Perhaps the biggest influence on his decision, though, was his 96-year-old grandmother. She absolutely loved C'est La Vie, and she knew it would be a hit. She said, that's got to be your debut. And as usual, Grandma knows best because Robbie went with C'est La Vie, and it became a monster. Now, the funny thing is, when you mention the name Robbie Nevil, everybody thinks he's a one-hit wonder, like I said. In fact, even some top lists and countdowns from the 80s have listed C'est La Vie as a one-hit wonder. It's one of the top one-hit wonders of the 80s. But that wasn't the case. Robbie actually had 5 top 40 hits, including Dominoes, What's It To You, and Just Like You. But C'est La Vie, of course, his signature hit. Robbie struggled after his first album, but he had a brief comeback in the 90s when his single Just Like You became his biggest hit since his debut album. It was his 5th and final top 40 single, peaking at number 25. Now, from there, Robbie Nevil turned to writing and producing for other acts like Babyface, Jessica Simpson, and Destiny's Child. He also worked on Disney projects like The Cheetah Girls, High School Musical, and Hannah Montana. Nevil shared ASCAP awards for his work on High School Musical and Hannah Montana in 2008, 2009, and 2010, and he continues writing behind the scenes. I definitely want to give Robbie Nevil his due, though. He's a true hit maker, not a one-hit wonder. Great voice, too. Speaking of one-hit wonders, though, coming in at number 3, I've got a trio of one-hit wonders that epitomize our show, and you'll smile when you hear a few of these because you just don't hear them anymore. But if you're a child of the 80s, I'm telling you, you know these by heart. I'm going to start with Living in a Box by Living in a Box. You know, in the rock era, there have been some really cool eponymous tracks, such as Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath, Bad Company by Bad Company, right? Iron Maiden by Iron Maiden. But while those tracks are timeless, when the UK-based Living in a Box sang a song about themselves, it was kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy because they never got out of that box. Living in a Box by Living in a Box, that peaked at number 18 on the Billboard Hot 100, so it was a decent hit. Problem is the band never had another hit, and they were stuck with a song about a cardboard box that sounds so 80s it hurts. All right, we're still at number 3. I'm giving you 3 one-hit wonders at number 3, cheating a little bit here. But our second one-hit wonder from 1987 is a song called Motortown by another band from the UK, the Kane Gang. And I gotta tell you, I love this song, and I think it deserved better. It should have been a top 10 hit at least. It really is catchy, it's singable, it'll make your toe tap. Now, the Kane Gang described their sound as Steely Dan meets Motown. What do you think? So their one and only hit in the US focused on the reaction to a new Nissan car plant in Sunderland, England, satirizing the idea of a manufacturing utopia while singing about weeds growing high near the old steel yard. And this one's hard to find, Motortown. I don't think it's on Spotify. It went to number 36 on the Billboard Hot 100, and the Kane Gang never had another hit here. All right, the last one-hit wonder from 1987 I definitely wanted to recognize because I really love it. The Honey Thief by Hipsquay from Glasgow, Scotland. The Honey Thief, I'm a thief. The Honey Thief blended sophisti-pop and really new wave that was prevalent in a lot of UK pop songs that crossed over the Atlantic in the mid-'80s to the end of the 80s. The Honey Thief, though, represented the tail end of the so-called new romantic period in new wave. That's why it's a product of 1987. In fact, it was right at the very end of that. Song is about love in the 80s. Stealthy, seductive, and synthy. Is that even a word? With lyrics referring to a thief who steals sugar to satisfy his desires. I always wondered, was that a double entendre or literally about candy? Just kidding. Hipsquay had only 2 albums before the group completely imploded, and The Honey Thief was their claim to fame, flatlining at a respectable number 19 on the Billboard Hot 100, though it should have been a top 10. All right, now it's time for the most dated song of one of music's greatest years. It's a song that soap operas used because it was a cheesy instrumental that could feature a lot of making out while you were hearing this beautiful soprano saxophone instrumental. Talk about Songbird by Kenny G. It was played so intensely in 87, you couldn't go anywhere without hearing it at least once, at least for me, especially in dentist offices, doctor's offices. When talking about dated songs from 87, Songbird by Kenny G, it's kind of an easy target, right? The song epitomizes the late 1980s adult contemporary and smooth jazz aesthetic, a production approach that relied on sonic choices. It's now the butt of jokes. Its signature 1980s production is really polished and glossy, prioritizing sleek synthesized textures over rougher, more organic sounds. Like I said, the music you hear in a dentist's office. Songbird wasn't meant to be a single in the first place, though. Arista Records actually wanted more vocal tracks on Kenny's Duotones album. The turning point, though, came when Kenny insisted on playing Songbird on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson in 86 going into 87. Now, the producers were skeptical about this instrumental, but a powerful executive's wife heard it and loved it, and the song, it took over from there. The melody for Songbird, that was composed as an artistic way to tell a new girlfriend in LA how much he liked her while he was still living in Seattle.
And I wanted to send her something that was better than a letter saying how I felt about her. And so I sat down and wrote this song for her.
As you can imagine, not many instrumentals made it into the top 40 in the Billboard Hot 100. But Songbird, that was an exception. Not only did it crack the top 40, it flew to number 4 in the Billboard Hot 100 and number 3 in the Adult Contemporary chart. It's always been my belief that Kenny G and his counterpart Michael Bolton wouldn't have been the butt of so many jokes if they wouldn't have had the long perm, right? The permed hair that was long. If they would have had a beard and shorter hair or just straight hair, it probably would have worked a little better. All right, we're at number 1 on our countdown of dated songs from 1987. And on this one, this one's a real head scratcher. Listening back, it could have been a standout track from that year if it wasn't for one, are you kidding me, lyric. Talking about Love Will Find a Way by Yes.
You wanna get close to me.
Now, let me preface this by saying I love Yes, and for that matter, I love this song. But there's one lyric in it that's so lame, it's so bad, I can't believe it made it past the recording. The band Yes had an amazing resurgence in 83, of course, with the return of legendary lead singer John Anderson on their 11th studio album, 90125, featuring that cool number 1 comeback hit, Owner of a Lonely Heart. So the revamped Yes followed that massive success of Owner of a Lonely Heart with 3 top 10 rock tracks, including Changes and Leave It. And then came the exciting promise of their follow-up album, Big Generator, including the lead single, Love Will Find a Way. Again, great song, till it gets to the pre-chorus. So let me set this up for you. The song starts out in the first verse, you want to get close to me? The feeling's so clear. But I need some time to see vision through my tears. You want to get next to me? I need your intrusion. I don't need to be blinded by confusion. Here is my heart waiting for you. Here is my soul. I eat at Chez Nous. What the hell? Now, the literal French translation of Chez Nous means at home, but Yes guitarist Trevor Rabin wasn't using it that way. He was actually referring to a trendy, posh restaurant in LA that he and a lot of people in the entertainment business frequented in the 80s. I mean, it was the spot back then to see and be seen. Now, Trevor admitted that his I Eat at Chez Nous was whimsical, but it definitely represents the end of an era. The interesting thing is that Trevor composed the song in 1982, more than 4 years before it was recorded by Yes, and it was originally intended to be a song for Stevie Nicks, but she actually passed on it. So Trevor retooled the track for Yes, adding an orchestral piece at the beginning, to make it more befitting of the prog rock history of Yes. even though it's more corporate rock than it was complex art rock, like Yes recorded with their core lineup in the 70s. But there are a lot of things to love about Love Will Find a Way, despite the Eat It Shay New line, including Trevor's crafty production, John Anderson, his stellar lead vocal. It's kind of a forgotten track at this time, but back in 1987, it was a number 30 single on the Billboard Hot 100, and it went to number 1 on the U.S. rock chart, and I always loved it. Still love it, but I have to admit, I always cringe when that line comes on. I refuse to sing it, and I'm left shaking my head thinking, how could you? Here's what John Anderson told me.
I went to the studio to work on Big Generator. You got Trevor Rabin, Chris Clark, and Trevor Horn with a silver box of machine trying to get a drum groove going, you know? An hour later, they still hadn't found the groove of what they were looking for. And I just said, okay. And I went outside and I looked at Alan White and I said, what the hell are they doing there? What are you doing in there? You got the best rock drummer I know. And they go, oh, John, leave him to it. It's okay. What the fuck are you doing, guys? You're fucking up here. You got Alan White outside who could play anything like this. So a big mistake was to try and do another 90125, which Raven, Trevor Horn, and Chris wanted to do. Don't do it. Just jump into the next level of Yes. We are Yes. We've got so much talent here. Anyway, I went out again. I came back and I said, look, guys, there's something wrong with this vibe, all right? I've just booked Air Studio down the road. We're going in there Saturday and I record Rhythm of Love. It's a good song. We all went to Air Studios on Saturday and recorded Rhythm of Love, which was a great track.
To the rhythm of love.
All right, we hope you enjoyed the trip back to 1987 to remember some hit songs that were so stereotypical of that period. They sound dated at this time, but they're great songs. They're fun to listen to. They take us right back to 1987. And a couple I think you want to add to the playlist, including The Honey Thief. I think Love Will Find a Way. That needs a lot of listens. And some of these other ones, even Living in a Box. I mean, you just listen to it, you'd have to smile and think, that's how it was back in the 80s, instead of these songs about WAP or FAP or whatever that song's called. I'm becoming an old man. This pop music that I listen to. I mean, I listen to a lot of stuff that's really cool. Actually, there's a song that I want to cover on here that's called Dream Police. It came out by, I'm trying to remember the name of the band. I just heard it the other day. My son played it for me. Really good. It sounds like Sting. I'll play a little bit of it for you here.
Oh, please, put me out. I believe it's only the start.
Let me know if you'd like me to cover that or cover some of these new songs that sound like the 70s or 80s or just great songs. Let me know if we should cover that. Let's have a great discussion about 1987 and what are some other dated songs that we should talk about, that we should list, that we should go over. I just love the nostalgia overload. And I got another great program coming at you that I'm going to be doing. It's a tribute to Casey Kasem and his shows. I'm really excited to be working on that. So stick with me. Please like, share, and comment. Let's keep this channel going because we got to keep the nostalgia rolling through the tough times. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth.